So that air horn is for everyone who's made it all the way through every single video of Perfect by 2021 Geography from a Social Distance with Mr. Foster, the award-winning lockdown set of geography lessons. Phenomenal work, guys. Phenomenal work. So we've got 2 lessons to go, today and tomorrow. That means we've got 2 more chances for social distancing explained, 2 meters for geographers. Back to a really important one for your GCSE, scale. 2 meters for geographers is 0.008 on a 1 to 25,000 scale map. What you need to be aware of is that scales exist on a map so that you can compare distances on the map to distances on the scale, which gives you the real life distance. And that's a skill that you're going to need at some point on your GCSE paper in summer 2021. So remember that, whilst also remembering social distancing explained 2 meters for geographers. Link to the Do Now quiz is on ePraise or in the description. Pause here and get it done. Answers already on there. So in terms of feedback this week, looking at the Do Now quiz, I wasn't particularly happy with the percentage of people successful with the question based around transport. It was around about 45–50% success rate. We need to know those river and coastal processes of erosion and transportation really, really well to make sure that we don't lose easy marks when we get to an exam. So very quickly, a recap, and hopefully that will help us to improve, ready for next time we need to use this knowledge. Traction. Large rocks and boulders are rolled along the riverbed or the seabed. Saltation. Smaller rocks and pebbles are bounced by the flow of the water along the riverbed or the seabed. Suspension. Very fine particles float within the water. Solution. Dissolved material, typically calcium carbonate, which is soluble, is carried in the water, but you cannot see it. There, the 4 methods of transportation. Hopefully we're a little bit more confident on the 4 methods of erosion, hydraulic action, abrasion, attrition, solution, and we're aware of the differences between erosion and transportation. Erosion, the breaking down and removal of material from a riverbed or a coastline. Transportation, the movement of that material. So, second to last lesson, greatest hits of year 10 part 1. First off, we're going to start with natural hazards, we're going to start with earthquakes, we're going to start with plate boundaries. A grade 4 marker, explain how earthquakes occur at a destructive boundary. Don't get your boundaries mixed up. You need to remember, are these plates moving towards each other, away from each other, or alongside each other? In order to get full marks, correct sequencing is essential. If you include everything but your sequencing is all over the place, the most you're going to get is 2 out of 4. We want 4 out of 4 here. I've given you a list of key terms there for you to have a look at before you ever go at this question. Oceanic, continental, plate, subduction, friction, stuck, pressure, release, vibrations, crust. If you fill in the gaps, the vast majority of the answer is essentially there. So think hard about those key terms, make sure you include those, plus any others you feel are relevant, and make sure you get the sequencing correct, and we should have a 4 mark out of 4 answer. Pause the video here, time yourself for 4 minutes, have a go. As soon as you're ready, go. And here we have the model answer. I'm going to read through and then we'll talk about why it's good. At a destructive boundary, an oceanic and continental plate move towards each other due to convection currents in the mantle. The oceanic plate is denser and so subducts under the lighter continental plate. As the plates move past each other, they get stuck due to friction at the rough edges. Pressure builds up over time, and when this is released, it gives off vibrations in the Earth's crust, known as an earthquake. The reason that this is good: the sequencing is perfect. Plates move towards each other, plates get stuck, pressure builds up. When it's released, we get an earthquake. So the sequence is perfect. We've then got a huge range of key terms, all used accurately. And if we start from the top and just look at key terms: destructive boundary, oceanic, continental, plate, convection currents, mantle, oceanic, plate, denser, subducts, continental, plate, plates again, stuck, friction, pressure, released will include as a key term there, vibrations, crust, earthquake. Full of key terms, well sequenced, and there we have a 4 mark out of 4 answer, and that's what we're after. Our next one, a bit more of a challenge, and if you were in Monday's live session, we went through some content here. If you weren't, you'll probably still be able to have a go, but it just might not be as familiar. Using an example, assess the extent to which a scheme to improve conditions for the urban poor in an LIC or NEE city has been successful. A huge amount to go through when looking at that example. First off, we need an example. So we need an LIC or NEE city. Hopefully in your mind you're thinking, Mumbai. Mumbai is the city. Second thing, the urban poor in Mumbai. Now we know one particular slum in Mumbai, Dharavi. The Dharavi slum in Mumbai, they are the urban poor that we want to talk about. We need a scheme to improve conditions for those urban poor in Dharavi in Mumbai. The SRA, the Slum Rehabilitation Authority, is the scheme that we want to talk about. Now we get down to the exam technique. What is the question asking us to do? It's asking us to assess the extent to which that scheme has been successful. So, because it's a 9-mark question, we need an intro, 2 paragraphs and a conclusion. Paragraph 1, we need to talk about why that scheme was successful. We need some specifics there, so you might need to go back and look at your knowledge organiser to pull out why that scheme was successful. In paragraph 2, we need some balance there, so we'd talk about why that scheme was unsuccessful. We need to include extent statements because it's an assess the extent question. So to a large extent, this scheme was successful, or to a large extent, this scheme was unsuccessful, or to a limited extent, this scheme was successful. Make a decision and stick with it. Key thing, potentially, especially if you did that live session on Monday, potentially you know loads of this geography. Don't overload with knowledge. Do not just list everything you know. Give a specific reason why this scheme was successful, and then develop that. Explain what made that part of the scheme successful for your understanding section, rather than overloading with loads of knowledge. You do that, you're more likely to hit level 3. Likewise, give a specific reason why it was unsuccessful, and then use chains of reasoning to develop that. If you're understanding, you're more likely to get to level 3. So, a lot to think about. Feel free to pause, go back to your knowledge organiser, remind yourself of that knowledge before having a go. If you're feeling a bit more confident, pause here, 9 minutes on the clock, and have a go. And here we have a model answer. Hell of a thing. And by summer 2021, we want you guys to be confident that you can produce something approaching this. This is a perfect answer from someone who's been teaching geography for as long as you guys have been alive. So of course this is what we'd expect, but that's what we aim for. So I'll read it through. We'll talk about why we like it. To a large extent, the Slum Rehabilitation Authority scheme to improve conditions for residents of the Dharavi slum has been unsuccessful. To a certain extent, the scheme has been successful. New apartments were built which included clean running water and proper sanitation. As a result, the risk of residents catching waterborne diseases such as cholera is greatly reduced. Consequently, residents can feel more confident that they won't catch diseases and that they won't have to spend money on healthcare, therefore improving their quality of life. However, to a far greater extent, the scheme has been unsuccessful. In the Dharavi slum, the recycling industry recycles up to 80% of Mumbai's waste. The SRA scheme does not provide space for this industry, meaning those jobs will be lost. As a result, not only will recycling rates in the city decline, but residents will also have lower incomes. Consequently, they will have less money to spend on essentials like food, water, healthcare and education, and due to this there could be a significant reduction in their quality of life. Overall, whilst there are some major improvements to life for slum dwellers due to the SRA, the negatives affect people, the economy and the environment, meaning to a great extent it has not been successful. Hell of an answer. Let's break it down. It's got a short intro. The intro states the position that I've taken here. The SRA scheme to improve conditions for the Dharavi slum residents has been unsuccessful. Now that dictates the extent statement which I'm going to put in each paragraph. And if we look at paragraph 1, it says to a certain extent the scheme has been successful. So that's saying it's been successful but only a little bit. Then we've got some specific knowledge. New apartments were built, there's clean running water, proper sanitation, reducing the risk of waterborne diseases, and here's the specific, such as cholera. So that's good specific knowledge of that scheme. Then change the reasoning. Consequently, they feel safer because they're not going to catch those diseases, therefore improving their quality of life. The connectives are there. Then paragraph 2, however, to a far greater extent the scheme has been unsuccessful. In the intro I said it's unsuccessful, I've said to a certain extent it's successful, but I've said to a far greater extent it's unsuccessful. Then the specifics. In the slum, 80% of Mumbai's waste is recycled and the scheme doesn't provide space for this industry. So there's jobs lost, reduced recycling rates, reduced incomes, people will have less money to spend on essentials like food, water and healthcare. Due to this, there's another connective, reduction in quality of life. So it's AKU, isn't it, to a certain extent. And then the application, then the knowledge, reduced rates of disease, then the understanding, the change of reasoning. Then in paragraph 2, to a far greater extent, application, then the knowledge, 80% of Mumbai's waste is recycled and those jobs will be lost. Then the developed understanding to get me to level 3. Finally, the conclusion, because we have to have a conclusion if we're going to hit full marks here. Whilst there are some major improvements to life for slum dwellers, the negatives outweigh this, meaning it's overall not been successful. The whole argument builds towards why has this not been successful. That's what perfect looks like. That's what we're going for. Have a read through, compare it to yours, re-listen to everything I've said here if you feel it's useful in making sure you know what the perfect answer looks like. So, homework. We've done all of the quizzes from the Knowledge Organiser pages for the whole of rivers, for the whole of coasts. So I'm not going to set any of that, but I want us to start thinking about summer homework. I'm going to put a checklist on ePraise. I want you to rate that checklist, red, amber, green. Red, you look at a topic as it is on the checklist. If you've never seen it before, if you've got no clue about it, it needs to be red. Amber, like a traffic light, if you recognise the topic name, if you know perhaps a few things about it, or you can vaguely remember doing it in lesson, then it's amber. Green, you recognise the topic, you remember the key points, you perhaps can even remember some specifics about it, then it's going to be green. Go through, rate your checklist of all the things we've done in year 10, including the stuff that we've done through lockdown, and then start to do some retesting week by week based on that. And that is your summer homework, to make sure that you come back with secure knowledge of the things that we've covered based on that retesting. Get it done. It's going to put you in a fantastically strong position come September.